Hello everyone, welcome to the section on formality. In this section, we are going to look at register and formality, degree of formality, and at last, we'll go over strategies to be formal in academic English writing. Part 1, the concept of register. Language varies with a user, and it also varies with the circumstances under which it is used. That is, according to the social context in which the language user finds himself. Register occurs in all discourse, and it involves the particular situation of a social activity with its particular participants, where, with whom, about what, how. So, what's register? In a broader sense, according to Halliday, the type of language which is selected as appropriate to the type of a situation is register. For example, if you write a letter to a company complaining about a service or product, you will use a different register from writing an essay about a political or environmental issue.
And if you write a letter home to your family,
it is a different register from your writing of an email to one of your university professors. Register occurs in both writing and speaking and depends on where you are, with whom you are speaking or writing, and the power you have or don't have, and the type of communication, writing emails, letters, essays, lists, books, speaking, conversation, presenting an oral presentation, speech making, making a request. We can put in a concise way social variables that determine the register. Field of discourse, social activity, tenor of discourse,
who are taking part.
Mode of discourse, a medium of communication, spoken, written, or a rhetorical channel. Generally, written register is more formal than spoken register. Task 1. Read the following 4 texts and decide which use written register and which use spoken register, and identify the relations between formality and register. You can see here 35% of the group of managers classified as participative reached senior management status. An individualistic style appears to be closely associated with
rapid career path progression,
whereas
a group or participative style,
despite its evident attractiveness to all members of staff, is correlated with a relatively slow career progression. Although lip service is paid to the concept of participative management, their real perceptions of leadership qualities completely contradict this view. It can be further seen that such service. So, we find there is a massive contradiction. Good managers are supposed to be participative to make sure they consult and discuss. Good leaders are supposed to be strong individuals able to make decisions on their own. Text 1 and 4 use registers that are lower and more spoken. These 2 texts are informal, they are less academic. Text 2 and 3 use registers that are higher and more written.
These 2 texts are formal.
They are more academic. Therefore, when wishing to write
in a formal academic way,
one should use a higher register, which can be realized by applying some language skills such as to use less people references, personal pronouns, fewer verbs, and more nouns and noun groups. Part 2, degree of formality, determined by the social variables including who we are talking with and what we are talking about, etc. The language we use on different occasions is different in degrees of formality. Generally, we can identify 5 stages of formality. 5 stages of formality: frozen style, formal style, consultative style. This may appear in novels, fictions. Casual style, intimate style. Let's have a look at one example of the 5 stages of formality. Example: frozen. Visitors would make their way at once to the upper floor by way of the staircase. Formal. Visitors should go up the stairs at once. Consultative. Would you mind going upstairs right away? Casual. You all go upstairs now. Intimate. Up you go, chaps. In this example, all the 5 sentences express the same idea, while the first expression is the most formal and the last one is the least in formality. Part 3, strategies to be formal in language use. With the concept of register and the knowledge of degree of formality, let's now look at how we can be formal in English writing. Strategies to be formal in language use include: choose a formal alternative, use nouns instead of verbs, nominalization, use single verbs instead of phrasal verbs, other strategies. Choose a formal alternative. English has a very large vocabulary derived from many languages, including Latin, Greek, French, German, and Asian languages, etc. Because of this, there may be more than one way to express an idea. When several alternatives are available, choose the one that most efficiently and accurately gets your points across. Variation at the lexical level. The above 2 columns present synonyms, and words and expressions in the left column are more formal than those in the right column. The following table shows how the logical relation can be expressed by application of formal or informal expressions. For example, if we want to express the logical relation of a condition, however, nevertheless can be more formal than anyway. Task 2. Now, let's finish a task. Match the more formal verbs with the less formal or spoken equivalents. In academic writing, it is better to use formal words. Keys for this task is 1D, 2A, 3B, 4F, 5H, 6C, 7E, 8G. Use nouns instead of verbs, nominalization. You may also have noticed that in many academic texts, there is abundance of rather long phrases which tend to carry a lot of meaning in a rather compact form. For instance, we can start with a word language and expand on the simple noun in this way. Language. The language of scientific communication. The international language of scientific communication. English as the international language of scientific communication. The emergence of English as the international language of scientific communication. Compare the following 2 ways of writing. The emergence of English as the international language of scientific communication has been widely documented. English has emerged as the international language of scientific communication. This phenomenon has been widely documented. Sentence A contains a very long noun phrase, a nominalization, which makes the writing to be much more formal than sentence B, which uses more verb forms. Task 3. The following two sentences are in spoken form. Please change them into formal forms of writing. 1. Classes differ greatly in how membership is established and how fast membership changes. 2. When the genetic material duplicates, they reproduce and they make errors. As a result, there is a change in what the genes are composed of. When these processes combine, life evolves. We may change the two sentences into such a way. 1. Classes differ greatly in how membership is established and how fast membership changes. Classes differ greatly in the manner of the establishment of membership and in the rate of membership change. 2. When the genetic material duplicates, they reproduce and they make errors. As a result, there is a change in what the genes are composed of. When these processes combine, life evolves. The combination of the reproduction and errors in the duplication of genetic material results in biological evolution, a change in the genetic composition of a population of organisms over time. Use single verbs instead of phrasal verbs. In academic English writing, it's better to use single verbs, as many phrases and prepositional verbs are characteristic of informal English. Look at the following two pairs of sentences. They cannot tolerate her bad manners. Formal. They can put up with her bad manners. Informal. Researchers have been investigating the problem for 15 years. Formal. Researchers have been looking into the problem for 15 years. Informal. In the first pair, the use of the single verb tolerate renders the first sentence more formal than the second sentence, which uses the phrasal verb put up with. Similarly, in the second pair of a sentence, single verb investigating makes the writing of the first sentence more formal compared to the second. Other strategies. Avoid everyday informal words. For example, a lot of, lots of, pretty good, guy, stuff. Avoid contraction. For example, don't, haven't, at, is. Avoid overuse of rhetorical questions. For example, what has antibiotic resistance increased? Often in academic writing, adverbs are placed in mid-position rather than in the initial or final positions of sentences. Consider avoid using split infinitives. Place an adverbial modifier between to and the infinitive as to sharply rise. Avoid unspecified categories. Expressions such as etc. and so on and so forth and that kind of a thing, this place too much responsibility on the reader. Some authors prefer some negative forms over others, believing that those in the right column are more academic. A word to sum up what we have learned. Learn to handle formality in writing means you have a strong awareness of register, degree of formality, and you can use certain strategies to make your writing to be formal and academic.